When we want to get into our router's command line interface to do verification, troubleshooting, or configuration, we've got a couple of ways of doing that. We could connect into a console port, or we could connect in over the network. If we're connecting in via a console port, we've got our laptop, maybe a PC, and we could use a roll cable to go into that RJ45 console port. That roll cable, it's typically a blue cable, it's flat. One of the challenges with a roll cable though is it has a DB9 serial connector at the other end, and a lot of our laptops today don't have those serial connectors any longer. So how do we connect in the roll cable? We might have to use a USB to serial adapter where that USB connection looks like a COM port, a communications port connection in our terminal emulation software. The good news is on some of Cisco's newer routers, there's a mini USB port that can be used for the console. We can connect into that. A regular USB connector on one side goes into the computer. A mini USB goes into the router. There is some software that we install, and again, the USB port acts like a COM port. And when you're setting up COM port communication with your router, let's make sure that we're set to the appropriate baud rate. We've specified the appropriate number of data bits, the appropriate parity, and the appropriate number of stop bits. On Cisco routers, by default, we're going to be using 8, none, and 1. 8 data bits, no parity, 1 stop bit. Here's what it would look like on the PuTTY terminal emulator, and whatever you're using for a serial terminal emulator, it's going to look similar there. And regardless of how we're connecting via the mini USB or via the roll cable, this is going into the console line. We also have some virtual lines that we could use to connect to the router. These are called VTY lines, virtual TTY lines. Let's say that we've got a PC plugged into a switch, plugged into the router. We could run terminal emulation software on that PC or on this laptop like you see on screen, and we could do a telnet connection into the router. That's not secure, by the way. Data is sent in plain text. Alternately, we could use SSH, secure shell, which is secure. The data is going to be encrypted. These are some different ways that we can connect into the router to get access to the command line interface. And in many of the upcoming videos, we're going to be taking a look at things we can do once we get into the CLI. If we want to connect to a Cisco router remotely, maybe using Telnet, maybe using Secure Shell, that would be the preferable way of doing it. Before we do that, we might want to make sure that we've got connectivity over the network. If we've been able to console in to an existing router, we might want to see what IP addresses currently exist on this router. Here's a command. I'm sitting at the HQ router's prompt right now. I can give this command to see what IP addresses are assigned to the various router interfaces. One of my favorite commands. It's show IP interface brief. And this output is going to tell me which interfaces or sub-interfaces have IP addresses assigned, and I've got several interfaces with valid IP addresses. I want to make sure that I can connect to this router via Telnet or via Secure Shell, and as a result I need to be able to at least ping one of these IP addresses. Let's take the loopback IP address. It's 10.10.32.1. Let's open up a command prompt, and I'm doing this on Microsoft Windows 8. Whatever operating system you're using probably has some sort of a command prompt that will allow you to do a ping. I'm going to do a ping to the IP address of 10.10.32.1 just to see if I have connectivity, and it looks like I do. I'm getting a really rapid response from that IP address, so this means I can now use this IP address to attempt a Telnet or a Secure Shell connection. Let's take a look at how to do a Telnet connection in our next video segment.